Hey, guys, I'm here. Today, we're going to talk about lost cities that were destroyed by fire. I don't know if you know this, but there are quite a few of them out there. And some of these archaeological sites have been hiding for thousands of years, until recently when they were discovered. Today, we're going to look at 5 different lost cities of fire. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first city we're going to talk about today is Pompeii. I think most of you have heard of Pompeii before. It's one of the most popular archaeological sites in the world. But did you know that Pompeii was actually destroyed twice? Well, not technically destroyed twice, but Pompeii was destroyed by volcanic eruption twice. The first time was around 472 AD, when an earthquake caused major damage throughout the city and surrounding areas. Because of this earthquake, much of the city had already been destroyed prior to the second eruption. The second eruption occurred in 79 AD. This eruption is what has made Pompeii so famous, because it buried the entire city under ash and pumice, preserving it for thousands of years. The eruption was so large that it even covered nearby towns like Herculaneum, which were also destroyed. In 1748, the first systematic excavations began at Pompeii. Since then, archaeologists have uncovered countless artifacts. They've found preserved bodies, frescoes, mosaics, villas, and even an entire theater. One of the most interesting discoveries that archaeologists have made at Pompeii is a plaster cast of a person who was killed during the eruption. These casts may look freaky, but they actually help scientists learn more about the people who lived in Pompeii. For example, this cast, which you can see right here, allowed researchers to determine the height and build of the person who once owned these bones. Excavations at Pompeii are still ongoing. Archaeologists recently discovered a new Roman villa just outside the city walls. They believe this villa may have belonged to a senator or a high-ranking government official. Researchers are currently working on excavating the site and hope to uncover more information soon. The next lost city we'll talk about is a little less famous, but it's just as impressive. Have you ever heard of the Minoan civilization? If you haven't, well, today is your lucky day because we're going to talk about them. The Minoans were an advanced Bronze Age culture that lived on the island of Crete 3,700 years ago. The Minoans reached their peak between 2700 and 1450 BC and had flourishing trade routes all over the Mediterranean. Some historians even believe that the legendary city of Atlantis was actually based on the Minoan civilization. One of the most famous sites associated with the Minoans is the Palace of Knossos. In 1908, British archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans began excavating Knossos. At first, locals thought he was crazy. They believed that Knossos was just a barren field. But Evans continued his excavations, and in 1908, he found the remains of a grand palace. Today, it's known as the Palace of Minos. Researchers believe that this may have been the center of Minoan culture, and possibly where a king and his court resided. Archaeologists have found countless artifacts inside the palace walls, including beautiful pieces of art, and a small museum that dates back to 1700 BC. Unfortunately, in 1450 BC, a massive earthquake struck the island of Crete, destroying much of the Minoan civilization. Some historians believe that this earthquake and subsequent destruction was the inspiration behind Plato's story of Atlantis. Herculaneum is another lost city that was destroyed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, just like Pompeii. But unlike Pompeii, Herculaneum was completely buried in mud and ash. This preserved the city extremely well. In fact, Herculaneum is so well preserved that many people believe it's better preserved than Pompeii. Unlike Pompeii, excavations at Herculaneum have been a bit slow. That's because the site wasn't discovered until 1738. Even though excavations have been slow, archaeologists have found some amazing things. Inside one of the houses, they found a wooden desk. Normally, wood doesn't survive for thousands of years, but because Herculaneum was covered in such a thick layer of ash, it was able to be preserved. Speaking of preservation, one of the most exciting discoveries at Herculaneum was the discovery of a boat. Researchers uncovered a boat that was covered in pumice and ash. Once they removed the debris, they found that the boat was in amazing condition. Archaeologists believe this boat was used for fishing or transporting goods along the coast. This boat is now on display at the National Archaeological Museum in Naples. Angkor Wat is an ancient city located in Cambodia. It was built in the 12th century and was once the capital of the Khmer Empire. The city flourished for centuries, but in the 14th and 15th century, Angkor Thom was largely abandoned. Over the years, the jungle quickly consumed the city. Trees grew through temple walls and vines covered towers. It seemed as if the city would be lost forever. Then in the 19th century, explorers rediscovered the city. Today, Angkor Thom is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most popular tourist destinations in Cambodia. When researchers began excavating Angkor Thom, they realized that the city was not only covered in jungle debris, but it was also covered in trash. Locals were dumping their garbage inside the ancient city walls. Even though this isn't great for the preservation of the site, it did help archaeologists find amazing treasures. In 2012, researchers found a giant statue of the god Shiva. They believe this statue may have been created in the early 12th century, possibly during the reign of Surya Varman II. They also found smaller statues of Hindu gods and goddesses. Another thing that researchers have found throughout Angkor Thom are lingam. A lingam is a type of Hindu symbol that represents the male reproductive organ. To the ancient Hindus, the lingam represented the god Shiva. You can find these types of lingams all throughout India and Southeast Asia. During the excavations at Angkor Thom, archaeologists found that many of the lingams had been deliberately smashed. This leads researchers to believe that the city may have been destroyed during a religious revolution. Some historians believe that Angkor Thom was destroyed by the Thai army in 1431, but this theory is still up for debate. The last lost city we will talk about today is the ancient Egyptian city of Akhmim. Akhmim is located about 250 miles north of Cairo. It was founded around 3000 BC and was originally called this. During its time, it was an important religious and cultural center. Later, the city came under the rule of the Greek Empire and was renamed to Akhmim. The city remained important throughout history and was home to several pharaohs. In the year 365 AD, devastating earthquake struck Egypt. The earthquake completely leveled much of Egypt, including the city of Akhmim. Most of the city remained buried until 1825, when it was rediscovered. Since then, archaeologists have excavated temples, tombs, homes, and countless artifacts. One of the most interesting things about Akhmim is the necropolis. A necropolis is simply a large collection of tombs. The necropolis at Akhmim contains over 400 tombs from the late period, Ptolemaic, and Roman eras. Each tomb contains priceless artifacts and helps researchers learn more about ancient Egyptian religion and culture. I hope you enjoyed learning about these lost cities. If you did, make sure to subscribe. I put out new videos every week about various topics related to archaeology and paleoanthropology. As always, if you want to support the channel, you can do so by becoming a member. I really appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.